Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. This is going to be a fun show tonight. I can already tell. Got a lot to talk about in the world of sports. Got the NFL Top 100 list that the NFL Network does every year where the players vote on the top 100 players. Well, the top 10 is going to be released this weekend. This weekend, we're going to find out who, according to NFL players, who the 10 best football players in the world are. So I'm going to rank my top 10 out of the top 10 that are left. And I guess we'll see on Monday how accurate mine is compared to theirs. Also, Aaron Rodgers says this year is championship or disappointment. Well, Packers fans, I got bad news. It's disappointment. And I'll explain why later in the show. Also, the Los Angeles Lakers are considering adding 2 more old players to the team. Not older, like old players to the team. Looking forward to getting to that. So a lot to talk about on the show today. Let's start with Dak Prescott. I've talked about Dak every day of the show this week because Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys in general are the story that just keeps on giving. And it's weird because Dak's a good guy, doesn't get in trouble, model citizen, great leader, but he's the quarterback of America's team, which always means you're going to get a lot of publicity, a lot of attention. For the last year and a half, it was the contract, which was, as I called on this show, the story that literally would never end. And thank God it ended in March, to be accurate, March the 8th, when the Cowboys and Dak agreed to a 4-year deal worth $160 million. And he's going to make $75 million alone this year. So there's a lot with that. But Dak Prescott, according to his offensive coordinator and close friend, good friend, Kellen Moore, they were actually teammates Dak's rookie year. According to Kellen Moore, Dak is, quote, not on a pitch count and says we're just playing ball at this point. Also, according to Kellen Moore, we're not looking at anything from a limitation standpoint. From his standpoint, we're getting ready for the regular season and Tampa Bay. What did I say on this show on Monday that I kind of touched on a little bit yesterday, but I'll really dive into it today? That Dak Prescott, according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, who's been covering the Cowboys during training camp, he said that Dak, next week, which is this week right now, was going to be ready to go in 7-on-7 drills and 11-on-11 at times, right? They give him a little bit more of a workload. He was soft tossing a little bit, like you saw the tape, pregame in Arizona, the second preseason game, and then even a little bit against the Houston Texans Saturday night pregame, throwing about 50 passes or so. And Tom Pelissero went on to say, after this week, they're going to, quote, cut him loose the week of the Tampa Bay game. I was constant on this show. Today is August 27th. He suffered the injury July 28th. And while obviously the injury was more serious than we had initially thought, as the next 2-3 weeks went by, the national media, doing what the national media does with the Dallas Cowboys, panicked. And while, yes, Jerry Jones is not exactly known for telling the 100% truth, I'm not calling Jerry a liar. He's not. But, he can exaggerate, if you will, to one extent or another. And Jerry was constant. Same message every single time. Dak's gonna be ready for opening night in Tampa Bay, and he's getting better. That was Jerry's message. That was Mike McCarthy's message. That was Dak's message, and people freaked out. This is when panic mode set in. Oh my God, Dak is getting a second MRI. You don't just get a second MRI because you want to. True, you don't. But Dak wanted to make 100% sure because Dak knows there's pressure on this year. Not the same pressure that's on Matt Stafford or Carson Wentz. Like that's different. Or Cam Newton. Dax is, hey, you pushed for almost the biggest contract in the history of the National Football League. You got it now. You took Jerry Jones to the bank, and he gave you your money, man. And I've given Dak all the credit in the world for that because I said he deserved every penny. Based on what the market says, and frankly, based on what Dak has done on the field and off the field. Leadership intangibles. But the pressure on Dak is, you've got your money now. You need to go win a Super Bowl these next 4 years. And week 1, to start the season, at the champs, at the GOAT's house, in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. And that defense, which just hounded Patrick Mahomes, made it the longest 60 minutes of a football game of his life. Dak's going to be playing against that team and that defense and that quarterback on the other end. And so, when the Cowboys' message stayed constant, when the Cowboy media, those covering the Cowboys, Jane Slater, Ed Werder, same message. He's going to be ready for opening night. And even yesterday, got the news that Dak has been, quote, fully cleared to play in week 1 in Tampa Bay. And this was my criticism of those in the media. Not trying to bash them because, listen, they're professionals. Pretty much all of them are great at their job. But they were sounding an alarm bell for clicks. Simple as that. Just because of what a few sources here and there, and even Troy Aikman. I have respect for Troy Aikman. No question. In my view, he is probably the second greatest quarterback in Cowboys history because Roger Staubach, I mean, come on, he was Captain America for crying out loud. He won 2 Super Bowls in Dallas, was a big part in that organization turning into a winning culture along with obviously Tom Landry and some of the other great Cowboy players of the 70s. But Troy Aikman said, I think this injury is more serious than what the Cowboys are letting on. And he was right. But the media took that and twisted it into, Dak's just not going to be healthy all season. That's not what's saying. It was more serious than what the Cowboys let on at the time of the injury. But what did the Dallas Cowboys say throughout training camp, which is almost over, which is crazy how fast it's gone by? But what have they said? He is going to play week 1 and beyond. And Kellen Moore said, we're getting ready for the regular season in Tampa Bay. Even Hard Knocks. Look, we're even getting an inside look of the Dallas Cowboys this training camp. Dak, the most angry I've seen him during Hard Knocks was actually before he even had the shoulder injury, the first practice of training camp. There was no pads, but the Cowboys had him on a pitch count because they didn't want to, put too much stress in the ankle just to be sure, right? And Dak has said, my ankle's ready to go. I mean, they're not going to throw Dak Prescott out there after that injury he's just suffered last year if he's not fully healthy. It's been a smooth recovery. Give Dak credit and give the amazing medical staff of the Cowboys a lot of credit as well. But Dak, we saw the sound bites. You can go to episode 1 of Hard Knocks. He was mad when they were taking him out in favor of Garrett Gilbert or Ben DiNucci. Bad, as I call him on the show. Ben Anthony DiNucci. Bad. He was mad. He's like, Garrett Gilbert would walk by and say, coach is going to take you out for a second. Dak is, with some choice language I won't repeat on the show, said, I didn't ask to come out. He wants to play. He's a competitor. He's a gamer. That's who he is. It's in his DNA. Since the injury, Dak has appeared to be in pretty good spirits. Talking in episode 3 about his fear of mascots and costumes all the way up till he was around middle school age. Talking about his fear of haunted stuff, like joking around, playing cards with one of the staff members of the Dallas Cowboys, who's like a 4th-generation Cowboy staff member, which was a really cool story that Hard Knocks told. He's been in good spirits. I don't think he would be, as much as he's itching to come back and play after the injury last October, I don't think he'd be, at least from what the cameras have shown us this training camp, down in, happy-go-lucky, if you will, almost in a way, being, himself, Dak Prescott, if the shoulder injury is more serious, which now he's full go. They're going to cut him loose, according to the head coach and the offensive coordinator. Dak's going to be ready to go. And simple as this, I think the Cowboys are clearly the favorites in the NFC East. They're the favorites without a question. Great comment here by John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast. Shout out to him. 2 weeks, baby. Yep. 2 weeks. 13 days to be exact from opening night. It's like, man, I'm telling you, John, like the NFL season, or the offseason, obviously in days, it's longer than any other offseason in professional sports. Major League Baseball, after the World Series, it's about 4 months or so. 5 months. NBA, this year it's going to be about 3 months, but normally the finals end in June. Season starts back in mid-October. It's about a 4-month break. NFL's 7-month break, which they need. It's the most violent sport of the 3 major professional sports. But, man, I mean, it is. But you know what? You throw in the draft, you throw in free agency, which has gotten very interesting over the last couple of years. Man, I'm right there with you. I can't flipping wait. He says, that's the money. LOL. Dak got his money. There's pressure on him. He knows that. He's a gamer. He's ready to go. Nothing like the NFL. Right you are, John. Let's talk about the Saints for a little bit. Jameis Winston was named the starting quarterback in New Orleans the other day by Sean Payton. Not at all surprising to me in the slightest, and that's no disrespect to Taysom Hill. But Taysom Hill's a gadget guy. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, Taysom Hill's a guy who's grinded his way through the ranks. He started his career in Green Bay, got cut, got signed by the Saints to their practice squad in 2017, worked his way up from there, became an effective special teams player, which is how, every lower drafted player to undrafted player in the NFL, that's how they make their mark, is special teams. And that's what Taysom Hill's done. And over the years, he's worked his way up to the best gadget player in the NFL. He can throw it. He definitely can run it. Occasionally, Drew Brees has thrown him a couple of passes the last few years or so. Like, Taysom Hill is a valuable part of that Saints offense, so much they gave him a pretty good contract this offseason to stay in New Orleans. That said, this was an obvious choice. Jameis Winston is a guy who, coming out of college at Florida State, and even now, I've never doubted his talent. I mean, come on, he's big, he's strong, he's got a great arm, he's fairly accurate. My issue has been A, turnovers, and B, maturity issues off the field. Now, the maturity issues, it seems like he has cleaned that up going into I think this is year 7 for Jameis Winston. And simply put, we're talking about a guy who, 2019, we all know, we know the 30 for 30 season, right? The old running joke is that ESPN needs to make a 30 for 30 on Jameis Winston's 30 and 30 season, where he threw 30 touchdowns, 33 to be exact, 30 interceptions, which is a record. But look at his other numbers. 5,100 yards, which led the league in 2019. Yards per attempt, about 8 yards per, which, that's going to be the case in the Bruce Arians offense. He's got the talent. And so I think there's also a lot of pressure on Jameis Winston because I think this is his last shot, possibly, to be a starter in the NFL. Because now he has Sean Payton, who's one of the 3 best offensive coaches in all of football, in my view, with Andy Reid and Sean McVay and Sean Payton. Those are the 3 best offensive coaches, head coaches in the National Football League today. And so if Sean Payton and that Saints coaching staff can help clean up the turnovers with Jameis, he's absolutely a starter in this league. Without a question. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2015 for a reason out of Florida State. Talent's never been the issue with him. But the question is decision making. You can't throw 30 interceptions. That's why Tampa Bay moved on from him, signed Tom Brady, and they're sitting here as the defending champs. That's how it goes. But Taysom Hill came in last year, started over Jameis Winston, which on the show was a decision I disagreed with, because Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. Just look at the numbers, for crying out loud. He's a better quarterback. But Taysom Hill won some games, lost one to Philadelphia before Drew Brees came back, and played fairly well. But he's at his best when he's a gadget guy. So, if you start Winston, you can still use Taysom Hill in the same role you've been using him the last few years. Roles reversed, you can't just throw Jameis Winston out in the field. He's definitely not going to be your gadget guy. He's not near as athletic as Taysom Hill is. So, that's the thing. John says he's rooting for him. I am too. I'm rooting for a guy who's got the talent. And it seems like he's matured over the last 6 or 7 years. The number one question I still have, and we're going to find that out this season, turnovers, decision-making. If he can clean that up, absolutely a starter in this league. Now, is he the Saints franchise quarterback? We don't know. I heard a former Aaron Rodgers teammate, I'm going to get into Aaron Rodgers shortly, but a former Aaron Rodgers teammate said that he had no doubts that Aaron would be the Saints quarterback in 2022. And obviously, if he did become available for the Saints and for anybody, everybody would jump at him, right? The Saints being one of them. Put Aaron Rodgers on the Saints. They're an absolute playoff team, and that division battle between them and Tampa is really interesting, although the Saints roster is not near what it was last year. We got to see what happens with the Michael Thomas issue. I have no idea what's going on there. Sean Payton's giving us one side of the story. Michael Thomas is giving us another. I have no idea who to believe and who to trust. I'm just going to let that one play out. But week 2, preseason, my man out of Tennessee, Marquez Callaway, 2 amazing catches from Jameis Winston. Marquez, even back to his days at Tennessee, is a good deep threat that the Saints can use. They've got other young players. Alvin Kamara, top 5 running back. Second best all-around back in the NFL to Christian McCaffrey. That's just the way it is. They've got a pretty good offense. Defensively, they took a step back. They lost Janoris Jenkins, but Cam Jordan is still there. Still one of the best pass rushers that we have in the league. And still going to give quarterbacks fits and offensive lines fits all year. So I still think the Saints can possibly be a fringe playoff team. And I don't think Jameis Winston is playing to be the Saints franchise quarterback this year. That is unless he just lights it up and they maybe win a playoff game or something. In that case, it'll be really hard for the Saints to move on from him unless an Aaron Rodgers did become available. And even then, Aaron at that point would be 38, 39 years old? Jameis would be a year from now 28. If he shows you that he can win you big, meaningful games, get you to the playoffs, maybe the Saints do go with him and sign him long-term as their franchise quarterback. Maybe they do. But what Jameis, above all else, is playing for right now is to be a starter in the NFL. Because if he plays well, maybe they barely miss the playoffs or barely get in the playoffs, maybe 9-8. Maybe they go 9-8 this season, and Aaron Rodgers becomes available. Saints go get Aaron, or draft a young quarterback. They could do that as well and maybe have him play behind Winston next year. Or they could just trade him to a team that needs a starter. So I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. It was the obvious choice for the Saints. And again, I do think they are in that fringe playoff team category just because I have so much respect for Sean Payton. And again, if he can coach the turnovers out of Jameis Winston, got a ton of potential. Never been a doubt about that. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron, man, he has not been short on quotes this offseason, at least since he came back during training camp. He had that press conference where he told the flat-out, honest truth what was going on in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Talking about he didn't have a voice. Packers didn't listen to him. So that was interesting to say the least. And Aaron said the other day when he was asked about the Packers making moves this offseason, signing guys to possibly once again go after a Super Bowl, he said, quote, "They jumped through some hoops to get under the cap this year. Obviously, the cap is expected to go up next year, but you never know. So we're just going to enjoy this season. It's title town. It's championship or disappointment." Well, yeah. I mean, Aaron is the reigning MVP after all. And again, Aaron is going to be on the top 10 players once again in the NFL in 2021, the list that the NFL Network does that the players vote on. And I'm going to rank those 10 players, so stay tuned for that. But I get Aaron's expectations. I get the Packers and their fans' expectations. But I'm looking at their schedule right now. I'm not as high on Green Bay as I was last year because their schedule, folks, is brutal. It's brutal. Okay, so you start at the Saints. I'll give them a win. Let's predict their schedule. I'll give the Packers a win against the Saints. It's Winston's first start in almost 2 years. It's going to take him a minute him and Sean Payton to adjust to one another, even though that they have been together. This is their second year together as a coach-quarterback duo. Packers come in more experienced. They want to make a statement week one, just like they did on the road last year in Minnesota. They'll win this game in the big game on Fox, 4:25 Eastern. They'll beat the Saints week one. They'll beat the Lions in week 2 on Monday Night Football. The Lions are an absolute dumpster fire. I have no faith in their head coach. I have little to no faith in their quarterback. Only thing I like about their team is their draft pick this year, Penei Sewell, who is an unbelievable talent as an offensive tackle. Outside of that, this roster is whack. Packers will beat them soundly in week 2. So they're 2-0. Then it gets dicey. They go to San Francisco. Now, they played San Francisco last year, beat them soundly, but come on, San Francisco was beat up as you could be. Missing their quarterback, missing everybody, defensive linemen. It was not a fair fight. But the last 2 times before that those teams were healthy, San Francisco and Green Bay, both games were virtually over in the first half. Over. Week 12 in 2019 and the NFC Championship game that same season. So I'm not saying this will be a blowout, but Green Bay, at least under Matt LaFleur, does not play well against physical teams, ever. And there are a few teams more physical than the San Francisco 49ers. They'll drop this game, first loss of the season, to 2-1. They play Pittsburgh at home. Again, Pittsburgh, physical team, great defense. It's a toss-up. I'll take Green Bay to win, but close. We all know Pittsburgh likes to get out to a great start early in the season. They kind of collapse late season. So I don't think the schedule makers did the Packers any favors putting them against the Steelers in October. They play the Bengals on the road. They'll win that game. That's a 4-1 record, right? Is that 4-1? That's 4-1, yes. They go to Chicago. Usually they split with the Bears. I'm gonna say they lose to the Bears because I think Justin Fields will be the starter at this point. They'll drop this game to the Bears. They're 4-2. Washington visits them. Again, like San Francisco, are there that many teams more physical than Washington? No. I will still take Green Bay to win. They go to 5-2. They play at Arizona. I really, really like Arizona this year. They got J.J. Watt in the offseason. They got A.J. Green in the offseason. My only question about the Cardinals is their head coach. That's it. I have my doubts about Cliff Kingsbury, but Kyler Murray is something special. He is so fun to watch. Okay, you've got DeAndre Hopkins, another top 10 player that I will rank later in the show. Stay tuned for that. You've got Christian Kirk, great slot receiver. Got Andy Isabella, the aforementioned A.J. Green. This is a very, very good Cardinals team on the road. I think Green Bay drops this game on Thursday Night Football on a short week, and they drop to 5-3. They play at the Chiefs. They drop that game as well. Kansas City is a better football team than Green Bay. They're at home. They'll beat the Packers. So that drops Green Bay to 5-4. Seattle visits Green Bay. I like Seattle this year. I think they lose this one as well. That's a 3-game losing streak. They drop to 5-5. They get their season back on track at Minnesota. They own the Vikings there for the most part. They go to 6-5. But then the Rams come to Green Bay to visit. Now, it's cold by this point. It's November the 28th. It's cold. But Matt Stafford has played a lot of games in Green Bay, and if you look at the final scores of a lot of those games Detroit and Green Bay played at Lambeau, they were like one possession, one score games. Like Matthew Stafford with the Lions kept the games close. With the Rams, with a better coach, better offensive line, better running game, better receivers, better defense, better special teams, I've got the Rams winning this game and probably easily. Packers dropped to 6-6. They beat the Bears the week following. Actually, they got a bye week. They get a bye week. They'll clobber Chicago because Lambeau, Green Bay is just better than Chicago. Then they go to Baltimore to play the Ravens. I'm telling you, the schedule's tough, man. You go to Baltimore to play the Ravens. This is Lamar Jackson. I will take Green Bay to win this one by the skin of their teeth. They beat Baltimore. They go to, what would that be? Shoot, I lost track. That's 8-7. No, that is 8-6. 8-6. The Packers are 8-6. They beat the Ravens on the road. On Christmas Day, they drop the game to Cleveland. Cleveland, to me, my only concern with the Browns is their quarterback. That's it. Outside of that, this is a Super Bowl roster. I don't know, save for a few players, if I feel the same about Green Bay. This will be a massive game for Cleveland. Coming in, big road game, big stage on Christmas. They'll come in. They're used to the cold weather, after all. Lake Erie, Cleveland, Ohio. They'll go to Green Bay and beat the Green Bay Packers. Packers drop to 8-7, but Green Bay finishes with 2 wins against the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions to finish 10-7. That is my prediction. Green Bay goes 10-7. They win the North once again over Minnesota and Chicago, who give them a run for their money, and they're in the playoffs. But after that, when I look at the NFC, you look at some of the West teams. I love Seattle this year. Rams, enough said. Buccaneers, defending champs. I'm not real sure how far Green Bay can go in the playoffs this year, folks. I really don't. Again, their schedule, I just gave it to you. It's brutal. I think they finished 10-7. And unfortunately for Aaron Rodgers, for the Cheeseheads in Green Bay, Wisconsin, it's a good season. But depending on who you play in the wild card game, if it's an NFC West team, which it probably will be, whoever finishes second in that division, whether it's Seattle or the Rams, I think it's between those two, and you can even throw San Francisco in there. Whoever finishes second in that division will play Green Bay. They'll have the best record of all the wild card teams. And then we'll see what we'll see at Lambeau. We'll see what we'll see, but that's a tough matchup for the Packers. I mean, against the Browns, physical team, Washington's physical, Baltimore's physical. Same can be said about San Francisco and Seattle. These are hit-you-in-the-mouth football teams, which the Packers aren't that good against the last 2 seasons. They've struggled. That's not an area of expertise for Matt LaFleur. I think he's a nice coach. I think he's a good coach. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are, but when they match up against teams that will hit you in the mouth. Indianapolis last year, Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship game and in the regular season. Tampa Bay destroyed Green Bay in Week 6 last year, and for the most part took care of them in the NFC Championship game at Lambeau in January. That's the biggest hole in the Packers. So, sorry, Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Packers fans. It's disappointment. It's not a championship. Last story before I get into a couple of lists. Top 10 NFL players left on the top 100 list as voted by the players. Top 10 players left. I'm looking forward to ranking those guys. And then to finish the show, going to do something a little different. Who are 5 dinner guests you would have to your house, dead or alive? All right, family is out, but celebrities, or just well-known people, successful people over the course of human history. Who would you have over to your house for dinner? 5 guests. I've got my 5, but you'll have to stay tuned. You'll have to wait till the end of the show. But I'll talk about the Lakers for just a second. I talked about the Lakers a few weeks ago when they made multiple free agent signings. They got Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony and Kent Bazemore and Wayne Ellington and all these guys and Malik Monk. Now, Malik Monk is the only guy of their signings that is not old. The Malik Monk signing is the only one that I really, really liked. Young player, decent ball handler, and can shoot the heck out of the ball. Right? LeBron loves that. He loves shooters. He's one of the, to me, it's either him or Magic Johnson, who's the two greatest passers ever. I might give LeBron, no, I'll give Magic the slight advantage, but it's close. LeBron's a great passer. He loves shooters. But what I said about this Lakers roster is, man, it's old. Not only is it old, ladies and gentlemen, it's the oldest roster in NBA history. On this show, even, I went over the last 10 NBA champions and the average age of the players on that team, on those teams. The oldest team to win a championship, as far as average age of the players, was the 2016 Cavs, which was a LeBron team. Their average age was 30. The Lakers' average age is 32. But wait, there's more. They want to add 2 more old players. Rajon Rondo, try and bring him back to the Lakers, and DeAndre Jordan. Now, when you step back at this, you're like, you know what? Rondo made a good impact with the Lakers, their championship-winning season. To me, he was the third best player for the Lakers in that finals against Miami. LeBron was the best player. He won finals MVP. AD was spectacular. And then to me, it was Rondo. You could have a debate between Rondo, KCP, but they all played well. I give Rondo the slight advantage. But Rajon Rondo is 35 years old, and with the Clippers, who, think about the Clippers for a second, all season on their whole roster, never had a true point guard. Reggie Jackson's a decent point guard. He's more of a hybrid, if you will. He's more of a scoring point guard and played excellent in the playoffs. Pat Bev, not a point guard, or not a point guard. And Rondo got multiple DNPs in the playoffs. That's with a man down, Kawhi Leonard. And he still got multiple DNPs. Rajon Rondo, who has kind of bounced around the NBA. He's with the Celtics for years, and then the Mavericks and the Kings and the Pelicans and the Lakers and the Hawks and the Clippers. He's kind of bounced around a little bit for a guy who some people are arguing is a Hall of Famer. That's a little concerning. I get it, he won a championship with you a year ago. And then now to DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan was like the third most anticipated free agent signing for the Brooklyn Nets in 2019, right? Yeah, Kevin Durant, you got Kyrie Irving, and you got DeAndre Jordan, right? He's friends with the two. Heck, KD and Kyrie took less money so that DeAndre Jordan could come and join them. You're like, okay, he's one of the best rebounders in the league. He's, alley-oop, he was great with Chris Paul, Lob City with the Clippers. Problem is, not only is DeAndre Jordan 33, but like Rondo, he got multiple DNPs in the playoffs last year. They played his old teammate, Blake Griffin, at the 5. Blake Griffin, who's a decent small ball 5, but against a Milwaukee team, which has Giannis 6'11", you've got Brook Lopez 7 foot, Bobby Portis is 6'9", like big, long players. They played Blake Griffin at the 5 as their big man. And at times, Nick Claxton, who was good, by the way, at Georgia when he played college basketball, but did we, any of us think that Nick Claxton would get more minutes than DeAndre Jordan? No. And yet and still, multiple DNPs during the playoffs. In part because he can't trust him to make a free throw. He's not as versatile as he used to be. So think about the centers for the Lakers. If they were to, say, make these 2 moves. Marc Gasol, DeAndre Jordan, and Dwight Howard. I liked the Dwight Howard signing. He's a good backup center. I don't think at this stage of his career he is a consistent starter for a whole season, maybe a couple games in between for the playoffs, and maybe that's all you need him for. That's why I like the move. I don't love the move, but I like it. So the oldest team, not in the league currently, but all time, the oldest team of all time, based on average age, is looking to get older. We've always said about championships, at least I've always said about championship teams, you got to have about 2 or 3 superstars. Check, the Lakers have that. They've got LeBron, superstar, AD, superstar. Russ, at this stage of his career, is a star. You've got that. Check. And then you need to have a good mix of young and veteran players. The Lakers only have 2 young rotation players, Malik Monk and THT, Talen Horton-Tucker, who's a good player, by the way, but I don't get the hype from Lakers fans and from LeBron's camp about Talen Horton-Tucker. I get he's with Clutch Sports and everything, but, he's good. He's not special. But then you got a bunch of old guys. Melo can still play, but he doesn't fit with the Lakers. It definitely doesn't fit with Westbrook. How do I know that? Because they played together in Oklahoma City. You can't just say, oh, LeBron will fix it. He's about to be 37. And while I still think he is without a shadow of a doubt a top 5 player still in the NBA, he's going to be 37. He's going into year 19. He cannot carry a team the way he used to be able to. He cannot make parts that don't fit at this stage of his career. That's okay. Again, I wouldn't say he's at the twilight of his career. Like, he's not just fading off the distance. He's still great. I've been consistent on this show. He's got a full off season. He is going to be an MVP candidate next year. I have no doubts about it. But as far as winning games, as far as making pieces that don't fit, I mean, is Frank Vogel going to do that? That was Indiana Pacers fans' biggest criticism of him in that regard, is some of the pieces in Indiana didn't really fit when you compared them to those Miami teams, the Heatles of the early 2010s, when it was LeBron, D. Wade, and Bosh. You can't just trust LeBron. Not just trust. You can't ask him over and over and over to just make it work. Yeah, this roster doesn't really work together, but, LeBron will fix it. He can't do that anymore. He's still great, but he can't do that anymore. And he certainly can't do that and turn this into a championship team. So I absolutely hate the moves the Lakers have made this offseason, but we'll see. But I think the fit with LeBron and Westbrook is an awful fit. I said on this show before free agency, is that I thought the Lakers' best opportunity to get better, to give themselves not a good chance, but a great chance to come out of the West and to ultimately win another championship. Go and get Lonzo Ball and bring him back to LA. Trade for Buddy Hield. Done. That's all you needed to do. If you want to bring other veteran players in, have at it. Again, I liked the Dwight Howard move, and I love the Malik Monk move. I think both fit. Everybody else, not really. Kent Bazemore, again, as a Warriors fan, he had 2 stints with us. I will just go ahead and prepare you, Lakers fans. He's going to drive y'all nuts in the games that he does play before Frank Vogel gives him some DNPs. Because when Steph got double-teamed a lot with the Warriors last year, Kent got some wide-open looks from 3. And just about every time, it was either a brick, short, and there was a couple of air balls. Kent's going to drive y'all nuts. Wayne Ellington, please. Melo can still play, but he doesn't fit with Westbrook. We saw that in Oklahoma City. That's the thing. So I get it. John, you love Melo. Listen, he's no question first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen. He's been a great ambassador for the game, but he is also, like LeBron, 37, and he can't just drag teams anymore. Or not drag teams, but he doesn't fit with Russ. We saw that in OKC in 2017. But I think had they got Lonzo Ball, had they gotten Buddy Hield, Buddy's a shooter, right? He hit the second most threes in the NBA last season to Steph Curry. He's a great shooter. Lonzo Ball, what I love about Lonzo Ball that drives me nuts about a certain point guard in Philadelphia is that he came into the NBA with some glaring weaknesses and just gets better and better and better and improves those weaknesses. Because that's what players who care about the game, that's what they do. That's why LeBron really liked Lonzo. Only reason he gave him up is so he could get Anthony Davis, and who wouldn't? So you get another guy who can shoot. Lonzo was like a 38% three-point shooter last year, so he can knock down open shots. We all know he's a great passer. LeBron likes him a lot. Kind of feel like Lonzo was almost a little brother figure with LeBron. And Buddy Hield's a great shooter. So you'd had a lineup of Lonzo, Buddy, LeBron, AD, and then plug in your center, whether it's Marc Gasol or Dwight Howard. Instead, they got a bunch of old guys. I will be consistent on this all season, this is the senior citizen basketball team. The Golden State Warriors on opening night are going to come play the Lakers at the Staples Center, which is now the Senior Citizen Center, and play the old guys. Because this is not going to win a championship. Unless they trade some of these guys away for veterans, not old guys, veterans, around 31, 32 years old, who can help you win, who have championship-level DNA and experience. This is not going to win a championship. It can get you maybe even to the Western Conference Finals, but once you match up against a Warriors or a Denver team, which has a great mix of young and old, or young and veteran players, it's not going to work. Here we go. So I got two rankings. I'm going to start with my top 10 players in the NFL. My top 10 players. Now, that was what's always interesting about the NFL Network when they do this ranking, is that the players vote on this list. And we know there's 10 players left on the list right now, based on the ones that have been ranked, the 90 that have been ranked. Okay, so you've got Devontae Adams, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Aaron Donald, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, TJ Watt. So that's the list. John says Lakers Nets finals. I don't know if either team's going to get there. I'll give Brooklyn a shot because KD's so great, but I don't trust Harden in the playoffs, and I don't trust Kyrie's health in the playoffs. So it could very well be a same situation where you're having to rely on KD to drop 50 just to keep you in games. Kind of like LeBron in Cleveland in some ways. So here we go. Out of the top 10 players left, this is how I'm going to rank them. So I'm going to start with number 10, TJ Watt. TJ Watt is... A lot of people thought that TJ should have won Defensive Player of the Year last season, and you certainly could have made an argument. 15 sacks, had an interception, was the anchor of a great Steelers defense. He's going to have another great season this year. He's still young. It drives me crazy to this day. This is not hindsight. I said back in 2017 during the draft, when there were two pass rushers available for my Dallas Cowboys to take, TJ Watt or Taco Charlton. I have no idea where Taco Charlton's playing right now. I don't know if he's in Canada. I don't know if he's with the Detroit Lions practice squad. I have no idea where Taco Charlton is right now. TJ Watt was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's number 10. Number 9, Devontae Adams. 115 catches, over 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns in 14 games. Just think about that. Now, we know he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, but remember in 2017, when Aaron Rodgers played all of 7 games, Devontae had over 1,000 yards receiving with Brett Hundley as his quarterback. It was some rough sledding for Green Bay in 2017 when Aaron was out. But he's an elite receiver. He's a filthy route runner, great deep threat. Him and Aaron's rapport is just amazing. It's automatic. Every time 12 throws to 17, it's almost always going to be a completion for a long gain or for 6 points. Devontae Adams is my number 9 player on this list. Number 8, a man who just got paid recently, Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a guy who had a passer rating of 107, 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions, and got the Bills to their first AFC Championship game in a quarter century. Okay, Josh Allen, just like I talked about with Lonzo Ball just a second ago. What I love about Josh Allen is that he came into the NFL in 2018 with the Bills and was horrible. Only had 10 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions. It was a mess. And I liked Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming in that draft, but even I started to sit back and say, Bills might have messed up on this one. But he came back. Every single number that mattered in 2019, he improved upon from 2018. And in 2020, last year, he improved upon 2019. Because he had 10 touchdown passes in 2018, doubled that to 20 in 2019, and almost doubled it again to 37 last year. He's an elite quarterback. He's got the best arm in the NFL. He can move. He's accurate. You see his pass rating right there, 107.2. He is my number 8 player on this list. Number 7, the best tight end in the NFL, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, an argument could be made that he had the greatest regular season any tight end has ever had. 105 catches, over 1,400 yards, and 11 touchdowns, and he sat out the final game of the season because the Chiefs had already secured their playoff spot going in. I mean, Travis Kelce is starting to put himself in that top 10 all-time tight ends list. Now, obviously, it helps, just like Devontae Adams, that he has Patrick Mahomes. But he put up great numbers when Alex Smith was his quarterback. And those have only skyrocketed that much more now that he's gotten Pat Mahomes, who obviously will be on this list later on. Travis Kelce he's not a great blocker. But there aren't that many receivers that I would take over Travis Kelce. It just shows you how the tight end position has evolved into, it helps if you can block, but if you can catch passes at a high level, you're going to get playing time, and you're going to make some Pro Bowls if you're great at it in the NFL. Travis Kelce is my 7th best player in the NFL. Number 6, DeAndre Hopkins. You can barely see him. Sorry for the podcast audience. You can barely see him in that picture right there. But that picture alone shows you how great this guy is. Obviously, for the podcast audience, for those of you that can't see it, is the Hail Mary. Not Mary, Hail Murray, because obviously Kyler Murray threw the pass. DeAndre Hopkins caught it over not 1, not 2, but 3 Buffalo Bills defensive backs. 115 catches, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns with the Arizona Cardinals. I still have no idea why the Houston Texans traded him, and not just traded him. They traded him for David Johnson and a 2nd-round pick for that guy. For, in my view, the best receiver in the NFL. So the Arizona Cardinals, like any team in the NFL, would say, thank you. We'll give up a 2nd-round pick and a running back who can't stay healthy. Please, here you go. Give us the best receiver in all of football. And he's going to make Kyler Murray even better. And I think the Cardinals have a very good shot, even in a brutal division, the NFC West, to make the playoffs. DeAndre Hopkins is my 6th best player in the NFL. Number 5, going to the top 5 now, Derrick Henry. Similar to DeAndre Hopkins, I'm showing his highlights from 2020, doing something that he does quite often, is just throwing people to the ground. 2,000 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns. He won Offensive Player of the Year. Something else about Derrick Henry, I'm looking at this right now. I saw Max Preps earlier today. Max Preps, the great recruiting website. This is just amazing to me. Derrick Henry is the only human being to ever walk on the earth that rushed for 2,000 yards in high school. He did that as a senior. 2,000 yards in a college football season and 2,000 yards in an NFL season. Nobody's ever done that until Derrick Henry. He is as great of a running back as we've ever seen. I said back in 2016 when he was coming out of Alabama, I said Zeke is the best running back coming out of this draft, but it baffles me how Derrick Henry was a 2nd-round pick. This is not hindsight. I love the kid coming out of college at Alabama. Running back U, there are a lot of U's. Defensive back U, you can make an argument possibly. Wide receiver U, they get a great receiver or 2 coming out every season. But Derrick Henry is just special. He is must-see TV if you love the NFL. And if you're kind of old school, you love smash mouth football, Derrick Henry is the player to watch. He is the 5th best player, in my view, in the National Football League. Number 4, the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Passer rating of 121.5, which led the NFL. Basically 4,300 yards, 48 touchdowns, which led the NFL, and only 5 interceptions. He won the MVP for the 3rd time in his career. He won it in 2011, won it in 2014, and after a 6-year absence of winning that award, he did it yet again in 2020. I have him at 4. I have him as the 3rd best quarterback in the league because, simply put, as great as he is, and he, in my view, I think he's a top 10 quarterback ever. Look at his numbers. Look at what he's done. He's all-time. Not that many signature big playoff wins as of late. He's been in the NFC Championship game the last 2 seasons. Okay, that's hard to do, obviously, with a coach that I'm not that high on in Matt LaFleur. But his team got clobbered against San Francisco a year ago in the NFC Championship game, and then this year at home. First conference championship game he's ever played at home. He said all year long, I want to get home field advantage. I want to get the number 1 seed in the conference so that for the first time in my career, we host the NFC Championship game. Well, he got his wish because of how great he played. But Tampa came in. Brady outplayed him. Aaron Rodgers had multiple opportunities in the 4th quarter. Came up short. After 2 turnovers, by the way, that his defense forced off of Tom Brady. Both drives, he went 3 and out. You've got to make those signature plays if you want to be the best quarterback in the NFL. There's no question he's still elite. But I can't put him as the best. John has got the eyeballs. He is surprised, as I'm sure a lot of people are, of that ranking. He is my 4th best player in the NFL. The guy who beat him, though, in the NFC Championship game is my number 3 player, Mr. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest NFL player of all time, doing in this picture, as you see here, what he's done 6 other times, hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Passer rating of 102, 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, won his 5th Super Bowl MVP, and his unprecedented 7th Super Bowl title. I don't know what more I have to really say. I mean, he left an organization that he had been with for 2 decades, a system that he had become more than familiar with. I'm sure he still knows the Patriots playbook. He goes to the Bucs in a pandemic year. New receivers, new coaches, new system, new conference, the NFC. No offseason. Matter of fact, in March, he accidentally broke into a poor guy's house thinking it was his offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich. He didn't know anybody. And yet somehow, some way, he put together one of the greatest playoff runs we've ever seen by a quarterback. On the road against the Washington football team, I get it, Taylor Heineke was the starter that day. But the 2nd-ranked defense in all of football, and he got whatever he wanted that night, actually. Won the wild card game. Went to New Orleans, a team that just destroyed Tampa Bay both times in the regular season. Went into their building when Antonio Brown was hurt, Mike Evans was virtually a no-show, Gronk did almost nothing, and still went in Drew Brees' house in Drew Brees' last game and sent him packing into retirement. And as I mentioned with Aaron Rodgers, NFC Championship game, frigid temperatures at Lambeau Field. I got this. Led the Buccaneers to their first Super Bowl since 2002. And in that Super Bowl, he won the Super Bowl MVP against the, at the time, defending champions, Kansas City Chiefs. Tom Brady is the 3rd best player in the league. Number 2, Aaron Donald. Folks, I don't know if we give Aaron Donald enough credit for being arguably a top 10 greatest defensive player ever. How many defensive tackles? And this was, some call this a down season for Aaron Donald last year. Boy, I'd sure like my down season as a defensive tackle to be 13.5 sacks and a fumble recovery and winning his 3rd Defensive Player of the Year trophy. He is arguably the greatest defensive tackle the game has ever seen, arguably. I mean, 3 Defensive Player of the Year trophies. That's hard to beat. You're talking about a guy who a few years ago was threatening Michael Strahan's sack record as a defensive tackle, not a defensive end, not a guy who's coming off the edge. A guy who is supposed to be a run stopper had over 20 sacks a few years ago, and last year in what was called a down year, 13 and a half sacks. I've never seen anybody as physically dominant at his position than Aaron Donald. He, to me, is the second best player in all football, which means, as I'm sure most of you have figured out by now, in my view, the best player in the National Football League is Patrick Mahomes. He is the greatest talent I've ever seen from a quarterback in the NFL. I get it. I'm a young whippersnapper. I get it. But the arm angles, the arm, the leadership, the mobility, passer rating of 108, 4,700 yards, 38 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. His first 3 years as a starter, folks, minimum, his team has gotten to the AFC Championship game. His first year in the NFL, threw 50 touchdowns. His first year as a starter, he threw 50 touchdowns, which is something only Brady and Manning have ever done. That's pretty good company. And came up just short against Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game. He comes back a year later, has 3 comebacks in all 3 of the Chiefs' playoff games last season, a couple seasons ago, really, and he won the Super Bowl MVP. And then this year, he was in the MVP running and once again got the Chiefs to the Super Bowl, where they, of course, fell to Tampa Bay. But we all know the quarterback position is the most important position in sports. The only real competitor to that is starting pitcher. That's about it. Because we see a lot of teams in the NFL right now that have the rosters, but they're missing that guy under center. The Chiefs were one of those teams. They had Alex Smith, who was a very good quarterback, made some Pro Bowls. He was good. They had Andy Reid. They had some great receiving talent. They had good offensive lines. They won the division multiple years, but they didn't have that guy. Well, now they do, and it is something else. It is something to behold. This guy, Lord, don't let this dude get hurt, because if he stays healthy over the course of the next 15 years, he'll be a top 5 quarterback ever. He's going to win more Super Bowls, more MVPs. He is all time. I mean, there's nothing more, nothing less. Patrick Mahomes, in my view, is the best quarterback in the NFL. So let's go back over the list real quick. Of the 10 players available in the NFL Network Top 100 Players of 2021 list, as voted on by the players, of the 10 players that are still left, and we will find this out, I think, Sunday, either tomorrow or Sunday, on the NFL Network. So I'll definitely react and kind of compare my list to their list. Number 10, TJ Watt. Number 9, Devontae Adams. Number 8, Josh Allen. Number 7, Travis Kelce. Number 6, DeAndre Hopkins. Number 5, Derrick Henry. Number 4, Aaron Rodgers. Number 3, Tom Brady. Number 2, Aaron Donald. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. That's my top 10. Sticking by it. Looking forward to doing this again next year. But we got one more thing to do. We got one more thing to do before the show's over. Something a little different than what we've done the show in the past. So I'm a guy who listens to a lot of podcasts, right? Some that are about sports, some that aren't about sports. And one of those that kind of are and aren't is the All the Smoke podcast. Big shout out to Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, who get the best of the best guests on the show in sports and entertainment. It's great. But they ask their guests the same question, the same rapid fire questions at the end, right? I said, a lot of podcasts do that. And one of the questions they ask is 5 people, dead or alive, 5 people you would invite over to your house to be dinner guests. They didn't invent that question, obviously, but it's one that I was like, you know what? Okay, here we go. in my view, let's get the table right here. We got the table. This is not mine. This is not my table. This is not anyone I know. This is not their table either. Just one I found on the internet. But 5 dinner guests, dead or alive, that I would have on my show. It's not just athletes. I do have athletes on this list, plural, more than one athlete. I've got entertainers. I've got people that have led the country. I mean, we've got it all packed in here. And so I'm going to start with my first person I would invite over to my house for dinner. The babyface assassin, the guy who's in the picture behind me, Steph Curry. You can see him in that picture right now. He's hyped. He's ready to go to my house for dinner. One of the things that's interesting about Steph, and one of the reasons I would invite him, is I'm sure a lot of y'all know, his wife is a chef, a great chef at that. She's had shows on Food Network. She's wrote multiple cookbooks. She's got International Smoke, which is a restaurant of hers. There's multiple locations all over the country. And so you have that. So we're going to have some great food. But Steph is a guy who is the life of the party. And one of the constants I have of the 5 people on this list is that, and they're not the only 5 people, but people I feel like I can learn from, people who have had to overcome. And Steph's a guy who's had to overcome a lot. You know, he's the son, and certainly his parents are in the news right now, but that's another story for another day. But he's the son of a former NBA player. Silver spoon upbringing, right? Pretty famous, at least in NBA circles, famous last name. And like his dad, great shooter. But he was kind of skinny, overlooked, went to Davidson. Where's Davidson? And in the tournament that year, he was lights out, got little old Davidson all the way to the Elite 8 in the 2008 March Madness tournament. And so he comes into the NBA, drafted 7th overall by the Golden State Warriors, and he's runner-up for Rookie of the Year in 2010, but then it's ankle injuries and more ankle injuries and more ankle injuries, multiple surgeries that he has, and all of a sudden it's like, is he going to be like Grant Hill 2.0? He overcame that. He overcame this. He's soft because he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, right? Overcame that, and is the greatest ever at what he does, and that's shooting the basketball. I mean, how many people can say they're the greatest ever, and there's really not much, nobody really disagrees that they're the best ever at what they've done. And for him, it is shooting the basketball. He's a great human being. He's got multiple charities. He's donated nets to Africa to fight fleas, and he's just a great human being. And his wife is also a great human being, and she's a great cook as well. So we'll be getting some great food. Number 2, the second person I would invite to my house for a dinner party, Steve Harvey, the host of Family Feud. He's got his own radio show as well, obviously. Steve Harvey is hilarious. I'm not saying he's the best comedian. He's not Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle or Jerry Seinfeld, but he's hilarious. So you got a guy who's going to make you laugh. Everybody's going to be smiling at the table, right? It's not going to be doom and gloom. The guy could keep a conversation going. He's a radio host, obviously, so he knows how to start a conversation or to continue a conversation. You're talking about a guy who is, started with humble beginnings and has worked himself up to the host of Family Feud, a radio show host. He had his own TV show not that long ago. He's a great motivational speaker, by the way, as well. You need to go on YouTube and watch some of his motivational speeches. They're awesome. But you're talking about a guy who's had to overcome a lot growing up and is doing pretty well right now. And by the way, let's play Family Feud after the dinner's over. And Steve Harvey hosts at my house. That's how we're doing it. Steve Harvey, Steph Curry. Sticking with the S's, apparently the third person on my list, their name starts with an S, and it is Ben Simmons. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not inviting. Ben Simmons is not coming over to my house until he can develop a jump shot. No, in all seriousness, the third person I would invite to my house for dinner is Sigourney Weaver. You're talking about somebody who, like Steph Curry, grew up with pretty well-known parents. Her dad, believe it or not, actually was the president at NBC. He actually founded The Tonight Show, which people still watch to this day. But kind of overlooked, kind of underrated when she was trying to get into the acting business. But yet and still, kept her head down, kept going, has been in some iconic films. In my view, personally, I think she's the greatest actress to never win an Oscar. It's a crime to me that she does not have one, but that's neither here nor there. But she's been in great movies like, iconic movies such as, as Alien, as Avatar. One of my favorites, Ghostbusters. She's great in that movie with Bill Murray. It's amazing. There's actually gonna be another Ghostbusters movie this November, I think. So I would invite Sigourney Weaver to my house. Strong woman, and definitely somebody who could carry on a conversation. A very interesting human being. Number 4, the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan. Now, why would I have Michael Jordan over my house, right? I mean, he's pretty rough. You saw The Last Dance. It's not exactly easy on teammates. But you're talking about a guy who loves to win, who wants to win, who will do anything to win. And I would like to, over dinner, kind of pick his brain a little bit. As well as the other guests as well. But kind of pick Michael Jordan's brain a little bit. About what it takes to be the greatest. But what I loved about Michael Jordan, it's something that was adopted by Kobe Bryant and turned into, the Mamba mentality. And Kobe was just different as far as work ethic, we all know. But with Michael Jordan, it was, I will not lose. It's not, I'm not going to, I will not lose. And he got some criticism for that. He's even lost some friends because of that. But he's a great businessman. I checked the other day shoe sales with Michael Jordan, and he's still blowing away every current NBA player. LeBron James, my other guest, Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant. I mean, he's just still, Jordan shoes are blowing every other shoe out of the water. I would invite Michael Jordan over to my house without a question. And by the way, also, he's just an interesting individual. And so the last person I invite, so if you notice, all the people I've invited are still with us, thankfully. The next person, the final person I'll invite of the 5, is no longer with us, hasn't been for quite a while. But I'd invite President Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. I mean, you want to talk about overcoming. Yes, Steph overcame a famous family name. He was called soft, ankle injuries. That's tough, obviously, no question about it. Not trying to shortchange him at all. Steve Harvey grew up humble beginnings. Sigourney Weaver, overlooked for years until she got her first breakout role. Michael Jordan, overlooked, drafted 3rd overall in 1984. But how about the entire country being at war with itself? Does it get any more difficult than that? I mean, this is this right here, it's a good picture of Lincoln. He's distinguished as usual, got the bow tie. But if you look at pictures of Lincoln days before he was tragically assassinated, the war took a toll on him. He's the only president who the only major, it wasn't really a political issue, but the only major issue that he suffered through and had to lead the country through was the country being at war with itself. Obviously, the Gettysburg Address is one of the greatest speeches that any American president has ever given. I would invite Abraham Lincoln over to pick his brain about what was it like to lead the country through, some would argue, its darkest or one of its darkest times. When at the time, people who were black were bought and sold as property. And he had to direct the country through that when previous presidents, I'm a big presidential historian. I'm just fascinated by this stuff. But the previous few presidents before him, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan, hastened the coming of the Civil War. They allowed slavery to continue. And what Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And it's not okay for our fellow citizens to be considered 3/5 human or to be bought and sold as if they're property. So Abe Lincoln, hey, if you could resurrect somebody from the dead and I could have someone over to my house, it'd probably be Abraham Lincoln. So here's my list. I'm not backing down from it. Steph Curry, Steve Harvey, Sigourney Weaver, Michael Jordan, and Abraham Lincoln. Those 5 are coming over to my house. Again, this picture right here, this is not my my dining table. It's a beautiful table, though. I'm not even going to lie. But that's who come over to my house. So there you go. That was fun. I wanted to do something a little different since the NFL season is 13 days away. Since the college football season is 6 days away. College football is like here, folks. We got multiple games next Thursday that I'll talk about on the show on that day. But fun show. 2 rankings. Talk about the Lakers and the Cowboys and Jameis Winston and Aaron Rodgers predicting the Packers schedule. So with that is all the time we have for tonight's show. Be sure to catch Carving Up on Monday, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're listening to the Carving Up podcast, we appreciate that. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you get your podcast. By the way, if you're on YouTube, you should click that big red subscribe button, comment on the post, like the post, share the post, click the notification bell. All of that really helps the show grow. And be notified, by the way, whenever we upload anything to the YouTube channel. And so hope everybody has a great weekend. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out.